So as of today, the Silent Hill 2 remake is being released by Konami, developed by Bloober. So why not let's look back and talk about the very original game, Silent Hill 2 for the PlayStation 2. The plot of the game is does not follow from the original game. I feel like that's also important for anyone who is curious about the game and say, but I haven't played the first one. You don't. It's not at all connected one bit. Even Silent Hill itself is quite different. Like the actual Silent Hill location is quite different to the first game, I would say.
The concept of how it works change. Well, it doesn't change completely, but it's like the idea that the town plays on someone's subconscious and psyche.
You play as James Sunderland. He receives a letter from his wife Mary telling him to return
his dead wife Mary.
I was going to get to that. Return to their special place, which is Silent Hill. With it being the fact, wait, my wife died of cancer 3 years ago, and so you go on an investigation, really, and that is basically the plot of the game in terms of a synopsis. This happens. He goes looking.
You go look for her.
Yeah, and upon that way, you also meet other people who are also going through their own shit. I think from a plot line, storyline wise, personally, I think it's just perfect, just psychological storytelling. I don't know, what it's quite
for the time as well.
Yeah, I think especially for video game storytelling.
The Metal Gear Solid 1 was considered the first cinematic storytelling game.
Yes,
and then Silent Hill. Well, Silent Hill 1 was... They were chasing the Resident Evil money is what they were doing. Because Resi 1 came out and Resident Evil and then 2, obviously, massive money makers and amazing games in themselves. They wanted to make their own Resident Evil and then, obviously, assembled the Suicide Squad of Konami. And then basically created, say, an American style, but they wanted to do... It comes from what you see at the start of the first one, I believe, where it's the fear of the unknown.
Yes. Yeah.
And then obviously Silent Hill 2 follows that, but in its own unique, different way.
If we're looking at the actual story itself, structure, everything, I don't think there's a point in that narrative where I'm like, that kind of falls flat.
Yeah.
I think anything in the sense of we get plenty of James and then there's moments where it's okay, then that's
Yeah, there's not too much of anything, is there?
No, yeah, exactly. Yeah. In my opinion, I think it goes quite quick in terms of if you know the plot line and you're going through the game again, it is quite fucking hell. We're this far already.
Well, the way I always think about it is I think of the game structure in the locations. So when you first enter the town, then you got the apartments, and then it's the hospital, and then you end up in the prison, isn't it? The prison, and then it's the hotel at the end. So it's almost chapters in that way. It just flies by. I think for me, the only thing I love the plot, I love the story. Some implementations of certain elements of the story could have been better and from a modern scope. I think the actual what it was trying to say and what it was trying to do, because it's influenced off Crime and Punishment, isn't it?
Yeah, narratively, yes.
Which is to say that of a game which came out, was it 2001?
2001
is probably mental to say when we were sat there playing our Crash Bandicoots.
Yeah.
And then he's Silent Hill 2.
The monsters in Silent Hill 2 are really grotesque.
The grotesque, that's a perfect word for it. I was thinking about this on the way here. It's grotesque. They're not horrifying.
No.
It's not gore-fest. It's just they look twisted.
Yeah.
They don't look right.
And again, I think naturally from a design point of view, you could look at the nurses. You could look at the straight jacket. Whatever,
It's like a zipper thing, isn't it?
Well, they're just straight, skin straight jacket people is what they are.
Stuck at the bed sheets.
Yeah, they are. and then of course, Pyramid Head, now known as Red Pyramid thing. The creatures in this game, they're iconic. I think they're good. They're really well. They're designed. The design is phenomenal.
The actual design's amazing.
But also, this also fits into the fact of how good the story is. Once you actually know the actual meaning behind them, it's that's even better of why each of those things.
There's a reason
are
why
they
they're
are.
there,
and it's not wanky. It's not a wanky reason of why they look like that. It goes
you see, the Pyramid Head plays all sides of society. It's on the stage. What's it called? The zeitgeist of society.
Again, if we're on about from a horror perspective, I think the narrative plays beautifully into being a great horror storyline. That's not just simply he needs to run from the big scary thing. There is that.
There is one scene, yeah.
No, but but there's a reason why he's running from the big scary thing.
He's
or
not
whatever.
running from the physical entity; it's representing something.
Yeah, exactly. But also when you're playing the game, it's got that visceral nature of shit. I'm running from a big scary thing.
Yeah.
And within the story, there's just an absolute banging set of characters. If I think we've got our main character James Sunderland, who is the protagonist, who you can look at possibly as bland. I don't look as bland because I don't think
it's like iconography now. I think back then, I do think that, like, just saying, like, if you looked at James as a character design, or like say when you first played a game, he's just an everyday.
He is just
bloke.
man. He is just
man. Green jacket. What makes the characters work so seamlessly as a cast of characters in this really unreal and unrealistic world where nothing seems quite right is they don't talk. Like, the way they talk, it doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
Like, they talk almost... I know there's riddles in the game. They talk in riddles almost, and nothing really makes sense.
I think the game does a very good job with him, particularly of, like, you'll never believe in him to be 100% squeaky clean anyway.
Yeah.
The game doesn't make you believe either or. Do you know what I mean? Like, the game doesn't give you a reason to think he's a massively good guy or a massively bad guy. So I think
he comes off unhinged immediately. Like, when he's in the mirror.
What's
he doing?
There's that. It's also the fun little quirk about when he's again, it's the fun quirk about the time period and, like, the aged voice acting of where you just see him go, ugh.
The voice acting's beautiful in this game.
Oh, I love it.
One of my favourite lines and exchanges in this game. There's plenty. But the one is between James and Angela in the first introduction. He goes, and she's telling them how dangerous the town is and all that sort of thing, or whatever. I can't remember the degree she's saying.
I don't care if it's dangerous.
I don't care if it's dangerous anyway. It's like, sorry, I didn't realise you were rock hard, James. Like, sorry, which obviously we know why later on, but he's like, I don't care anyway. I was like, if I was Angela, I'd be like, all right, you go ahead.
In terms of video game protagonist, I think James is up there for me in terms of a personal favorite. I don't know if he's my favorite video game protagonist, but I
he's my favorite. I think in terms of he's probably the best way of tricking the player to latch themselves onto James, because he's so plain. Because that's like a design thing, and the earliest one I can think of is where Shigeru, who obviously made Mario, Zelda, and that sort of thing, with Link. It's a link to the player. He doesn't talk and all this sort of thing. Whereas with James, obviously he does talk and has a plot. He doesn't say much. There's not much to him. There's not much quirks in his character. He just looks very solemn. So it's like, are you supposed to plant yourself onto it? And then it's like, okay, I'm progressing the plot. I've got it. I need to find Mary, and it kind of does that intentionally.
We got Mary as well, the whole reason for this plot to be happening.
The dead one.
Who I think is, I don't know the voice actor's name for this, but just the best voice actor in the whole game.
Probably. The one who actually sounds semi, like, taking it seriously a little bit.
Yeah, well, I also think partially because she's not in the game that much.
Yeah,
so
she has a moment.
Is it the same voice actor as Maria?
Yeah, I think
is it the same voice actor?
I think so.
Okay.
I know in the remake it's the same.
Is it the same?
And I think they've kept that intentionally.
Because say Mary, the voice actor for Mary, did just as had similar cadence to that of Angela or that of Eddie or that of James. I love their voice acting. I will say that
Eddie's not the best voice actor in this.
I love them for their reasons, but if Mary was that,
killing people is easy.
But if Mary,
just go pow.
But if Mary was that, I don't think, especially that ending monologue, that's not hitting at all. That game's not hitting one bit.
There's a couple of bits I'm thinking of.
I'm thinking of the final letter. I'm thinking of the
final letter.
The very final letter where we're hearing.
There's a bit when he, I think it's after. Obviously, we'll get to it, but after the tape, he walks out the hotel bedroom, and the hotel's like warped. Yeah. There's like monsters, and then there's like. I think there's like water inside and stuff like that. It's flooded. Yeah. And then there's a monologue from Mary, just outright just berating James.
That's what I mean. It's like, I'm glad we got that because again, she's not just precious angel Mary. It's a thing where it's like, well, she's a human being going through this really this terminal illness.
Yeah, you don't blame her whatsoever when she's angry.
Angela as a character, I think, is a brilliant counterpart to James. As a side character, I think because she's
probably the most complicated one.
Oh man,
I would say.
She could have had her own game.
Well, this is the thing.
That she could have been another protagonist in a Silent Hill game entirely. I think every Angela sequence is probably close to my favorite parts of this game.
Oh yeah, I think it's probably especially for the time and the topics that are being discussed with Angela.
Because Angela
It's well handled.
Because Angela is a 19-year-old girl whose plotline is she was abused by her father. Am I right
I think
with that?
Wasn't her brother involved or something? I think it was father for definitely.
Yeah.
But I feel like, if I'm remembering wrong, there's a brother as well, but they're both being abusive.
Yeah. And again, there's never a moment in this game where she outright goes, "My dad did this," or anything like that.
You just know.
There's moments, again, when she's like, again, when you go through that other boss, as we said, when in that skin room,
Skin with the plates,
throws the telly, kicks it, and she's like just like really like gutturally like screaming at this thing, and it's like, oh shit, all right. And the things that she says, man, you can put two and two together. That's the thing as well. This game isn't. It's not insulting the audience's intelligence. It's very much so like you can get it. Like you can understand emotions. Just
it's like when I think the only thing of Angela, like the voice actress does what she does with it, but I find it gets melodramatic in the sense of the way she delivers it sometimes.
I do agree.
But I like how you find. I think the point is she's supposed to be hysterical. She's like not with it, and obviously with the knife in the second scene, you see her. You know she's on the edge, so you're like, that fits her character. But I find the best thing about her is like they brought like that very sensitive topic of what they were talking about with obviously a young girl. And
this is early 2000s video games,
which is mental. Like
if you think about the time period, this is like video games weren't looked upon as like intellectual storytelling devices at this point.
And then women were very materialistic in those days as well,
you
with
especially
video
look at
games.
That time period where it's like
I mean,
Tomb Raider. We'll talk about Eddie,
the best character.
Is he? Is Eddie the best character?
Well, he's omnipotent, isn't he? He can access pizza from Silent Hill, an empty town. Where did he get that pizza from?
Our introduction to Eddie is ass crack out, and he's vomiting through the toilet. You hear him before you see him.
I jumped a bit. I remember when I was replaying it, and it might be when we were playing it, and like and then you just walk in the room. The apartment's obviously dark and everything like that. I was like, "What's that?" And I was like ready with my 2x4, like if
bonk some ass.
If this was real life and I was like walking around and someone was spitting just like that, I would have knocked him out with that piece of wood by accident.
I think his inclusion in the game is enough as well. I didn't need more. I didn't need more Eddie.
He has the quirkiest element to him.
Yes,
like he's the cheesiest.
I mean, look at him. He's got a backwards baseball cap on.
He's probably like driving to Silent Hill, blasting Limp Bizkit.
He's the most early 2000s of the characters.
Where does he get the pizza from?
I mean, you know what? That is a genuine
question. Genuinely, he goes to him. How could you just be eating pizza?
Where did you get the pizza?
Where did you get the pizza? Like, where did that pizza come from? He's in like the decrepit bowling alley.
Yeah, yes.
So like, we have pizza, but we don't have bowling. So,
who's serving it?
Yeah, who's giving him that pizza? It's like what? Pyramid Head. Yeah.
There's that one section where you have to fight Eddie,
which is hilarious.
You shoot him.
Do you remember when we played it, and then the section before where you can find Pyramid Head's sword? The butcher knife.
Yes.
And we found it, and then we were determined to hit him with it. I was like, imagine that, tearing it up. Sure, there's definitely like probably a meaning to that. So I do think there's a meaning to that somewhere, where the fact you can access it just to use that because of what Pyramid Head represents.
Yeah.
But like, it's just so funny turning up with like Eddie doing a little jog round of Freezer, and then you're sat there with the biggest butcher knife. And if I was Eddie, I would run.
Oh yeah.
I would. I've got a gun, but look at the state. Look at the state of that knife.
Maria is identical to Mary.
Yeah.
Except she's a bit more promiscuous.
Yeah.
In her dress sense.
A little bit quirky. A little bit of like.
I mean, yeah, man. She's even like. I mean, her attitude's also the opposite.
Yeah, exactly. Like, her personality's like, she's not reserved or anything. She's just kind of like fun-loving and all this, like, easygoing.
She's a figment of James's psychological mess.
It's his ideal Mary, isn't it?
It's his ideal Mary, which, again, as I said, I think working as a narrative, it's so great because it's this uncanny mystery, which I think any of the best horrors you always uses an uncanny mystery.
Yeah.
I think horror storytelling in general as a viewer, you always need to be like, well, what's going on here?
Yeah.
Like, oh, this is interesting. I don't understand what's happening, so I'm interested in what's happening. It's that as well. It's like you look exactly. It's like, yeah, why does she look exactly like?
Yeah.
Why is this like?
Yeah. What's really cool is like it's not an escort mission because really, obviously, you don't let her die. But like, I mean, she does it herself multiple times anyway in the story for you. But the thing with her is that just having her there influences what story you go and how you treat her.
Yeah.
And how you're going to take James down a certain path.
I think that plot point's very interesting, even in today's world, in the sense of like having a more ideal woman.
Yeah.
And like, yeah, maybe the first impression of that can be like, oh yeah, this is sound. But then again, it's one of these things where it's like, you're leaving a nap for a bit, and then you go, I'm going to do my own thing.
Yeah.
And then the next time you see her, she's fucking screaming at you, being like, you could have left me, I could have died. He goes,
anyway?
Yeah, anyway? What do you mean, anyway? It's like, Jesus Christ. And then she kind of flips it. It's like, it's a really manipulative way how she's doing it as well.
It's like, you've seen something just happen, she's just not acknowledging it.
Yeah. And like, again, it's
gaslighting James.
Yeah, exactly. It's a very post-horror way of doing it. I think this is what helps with James. James is never like a really developed, like, I need to do something myself. And then, like, his intrigue is elevated by everyone else around him.
And he keeps saying to himself the motivation. It's almost like he's screaming at, like, the player. I need to find Mary. I need to find Mary. Yet the logical, and this is what I'm saying, is where nothing makes sense. You literally have it on the fact that she's dead. Yeah. Why are you looking for her? People are telling you she's dead. Why have you gone there?
You know she's dead.
You know she's dead. So why are you looking for her? And the motivation. So I think I remember my first time playing going, what's he... He's going through these horrendous hospitals, this horrendous prison and all that. He keeps going. And like, obviously the emphasis on the holes and the jumping down them and stuff like that, falling further into the depths. Yeah. Why is he doing this? It's almost like not right before being too on the nose.
Yeah.
And I think what they do with Maria is just like brilliant.
I think that like moves on into like, I think like a big thing about Silent Hill 2, Silent Hill in general, but I think 2 especially is just the impeccable atmosphere of the game.
Yeah, like, you can't. I don't think it's anything being better.
Again, I think
Silent Hills. Rest in peace.
Well, PT, you know.
Well, yeah, PT.
Yeah. But I think like in terms of like. And again, it's done budgetary, isn't it?
Yeah.
They need the fog because they can't load it.
The story is like there is a technique, which I know this from the Spyro the Dragon games particularly, is for them to get bigger worlds and stuff like that. They would basically have a code which will essentially improve the resolution of distant things the closer you get to them.
Mm-hmm.
And because what would happen is, like say Crash Bandicoot, when you're walking towards a level, half the level isn't loaded until you get closer. It's like almost distance. It starts loading it as you're going on, so there's nothing there. So you're almost like following a big square all the way along. And then what Silent Hill 1 did was that, obviously the team that were working on it weren't great in making these games. They were just having, literally just, it would have just, when you look at it and take the fog out, it's just like a square. Harry's there, and then it's just you following the map like that, and the map loads in instantly. So you just see a square and just black around you. So the fog was put in purely to cover that, and I think it was like supposed to be, I don't know if it was supposed to be snow, but it was like it's supposed to cover that up.
It's kind of snowy,
But like, this is what I find you find a lot in game design, is where something accidental from limitations tends to add a really cool thing to the games, and the fog's just like, oh yeah, that was there because we didn't know what we had to cover it up, and then it's actually, the atmosphere is amazing.
When those first like monster introductions you just see like that like that little like fucking like straight jacket thing just like waddling out of the mist. It's just,
you can just barely see it, can't you?
I don't even need to say why that's cool.
Yeah. But it comes into the phrase of like from the first one, the fear of the unknown. You don't know what that is in there. The fog hides it, it masks it all. And what's really cool about it as well, the fog itself is iconography of Silent Hill, which is where I know people who've never played a Silent Hill game, but they know about the fog in Silent Hill. Will say, oh, it's like Silent Hill because of the fog.
Yeah, the different location of the game. It's grim.
It's the other world, isn't it? It's what's called.
Nothing feels in place or right, but nothing feels filthy. Like everything about like each location in the game doesn't feel comfortable, but it doesn't feel like
it feels decrepit.
I don't want to be here.
It's just like it's just abandoned.
Yeah,
it's like in a state.
Yeah, I mean, is it Heaven's Night? It's like they still got the neon sign.
Yeah, it's lights
it's
on.
Still so the film. It's
like paused in time almost.
The fear is still there in Silent Hill, but it also makes sense to why someone might still be all right being around. Akira Yamaoka, is he maybe the best composer?
I'd say for me in video games, he is my favorite. I was thinking about this, and I was like going, I don't want to just be like, oh yeah, he's the best. And I was like, when I think about it, he's the most original for me.
He's done all the scores.
Yeah, and they all sound great.
And you look at the first 3 games specifically; they're all different vibes.
Not yet,
but they're all bangers.
Like as a musician, they're absolute like. You go for a vibe, and I think you often falter into sort of safe trappings a lot of the time. But he kind of took almost. It's like, especially the first game, it's like very Trent Reznor sort of industrial sort of 9 Inch Nails with the most horrendous sort of noises to disturb you and stuff
dental
like that.
Instruments, dental tools.
But what I like is that you get a bit of his vibe that almost he's going to bring in. He completely dives into for 2. With the opening for Silent Hill, the main theme, and there's one of
Laura.
Yeah, like everything just sort of like there's nothing straight up horrifying in the score. Like there's some disturbing parts of the score which you get the soundscapes.
There's like white noise.
Yeah, white noise.
There's other things like that where
there's like soundscapes and stuff, but like
where he delves a bit more into like the chunky like sounding with it. But then there's moments where it's like, no, I just got a piano.
Yeah, it's like, and he takes themes and takes them all different places, even rock elements to it. And it's like obviously Fever Laura and stuff, and then it's reprised in certain ways. And it shows how that's how you find how strong a melody and accompaniment is if you can reprise it many times and it make it sound just as interesting. But it's just vibey, and it's like if I was to say what's existentialism in a soundtrack, that's it.
You know how like Spielberg said that like John Williams is 70% of Jaws?
Yeah.
Same thing. I think the same applies with this game in that sense, where it's like, again, you think about like when James finishes watching the tape.
Yeah.
And then we just sit. If we weren't just in silence, it would still be impactful.
It'd be effective, yeah.
But then also we get like that. I think is it Promise at that point? I can't
think so.
But there's
definitely one of those pieces.
Yeah, but it's like, you know, like this really like sad piano track where it's like, oh, okay, now I'm actually feeling it. I listen to the album separate in general.
No,
like, it's one of those ones where it's like, I don't need to just.
Yeah, it feels cold and unfamiliar, like, and even some of the bits like kind of like reflective, like Theme of Laura or something like that. You still don't feel comfortable.
No.
You feel like you're in a sad end of affairs, really.
From my point of view, playing it now, it's clunky. It's not.
Yep.
It's clunky. It's
tank style controls, isn't it?
Yeah, and it takes its time. But I think with any other game, it would be annoying. With this kind of a game, I'm fine with the fixed camera angles. I'm fine with figuring out the controls. I'm fine with it.
Yeah. You have to remember it came out in 2001, where this is pretty much what the bog standard would be for those games. And when you go back to any game from that long time ago, you have to. I always say it when you go, oh, that game was amazing, but play it now.
Yeah.
How does it play? For 2001, there's even on the back of the box, it's like fully 3D this and all this sort of thing. It's revolutionary. And they use, I don't know if they use the same engine. They probably did. With being Konami. Metal Gear Solid 2 came out the same year.
Yes.
And the models are very similar in terms of their design. So, like, it feels like it was built using the same thing. Graphically, this was really, really, really good at the time.
Oh, no, I agree.
Really good.
I think, again, because I've got my mind set to, like, if I'm... I mean, I like the PS2 aesthetic, personally. Yeah. I do like...
Because it doesn't have strong lighting, does it?
No.
It's very sort of just dry.
It gives a really... There's a cool aesthetic to PS2, and I think, especially with this game, it's like you could look at it... Again, you could look at like, the actual gameplay graphics. Cool. The cutscene graphics, I think, are pretty outstanding.
And the move, I mean, it's a bit like erratic now when it moves between gameplay and that, and suddenly like it's just like a CG sort of thing because the resolution changes.
Yeah,
but it's cool. Like at the time, that's mental. It has the survival horror gameplay design mechanics in which there's scattered ammo, where you don't always have loads of ammo. They make you feel scarce. You use whatever you've got. I like the idea that in the animations that they outright show that James is not really someone who's used to firearms and stuff like
He
that.
takes a long swing around.
Yeah.
With a,
They wind up. They make it difficult on purpose. So when people say, "Oh, it's clunky in that way," it's partially intentionally done that way. Probably not fully now. It's just that when you look back, it's probably just the way it was, just because of the technology they added there for them. But when people say survival horror, I struggle to say that it's full on survival, because Resident Evil really popularized that with the fact that you have no ammo. It's all about big fights and guns and all this sort of thing, and these horrors turning up left, right, and center.
Last of Us kind of did it, like kind of brought it back in terms.
Last
of
of Us
the
did
main.
it in sort of a storytelling thing, didn't they? And then but there's not that many enemies in the game. You can outright just avoid them, just keep out the way.
You can maybe get hit once, but then just keep running.
And then I'm sure with like Pyramid Head, the first fight, like you can just don't even bother shooting them. I think.
Really?
I think it's timed. Surviving, I think the closest you get to survival horror is the hospital, probably. But like,
that's true. I think if anything, there's more emphasis on the puzzles.
Yeah, the puzzles are the puzzle. That's a segment. That's like the puzzles in Silent Hill 2. They're not as bad. As long as you read the document sheet. They're pretty easy to solve. Silent Hill 1's ridiculous sometimes. The puzzles are brilliant, and I do think in Silent Hill 2, even though they take a slight bit of a backseat compared to 1,
this game is very, very, very. The story's the focus, with the gameplay being like, we're gonna get you through to the story. We're gonna give you enough to give you a challenge and give you player intrigue.
Yeah,
but don't worry. Let's talk about the twist in this.
Yes, let's get to it.
Again, it's difficult to talk about it in the sense of like, what else is there to say?
Yeah, that Eddie was the pizza man all along.
Eddie was the pizza man. Again, it's the class. Again, it's the thing where I think even people who don't know Silent Hill 2 know it.
Know the twist. Yeah.
An interesting protagonist thing. One about flawed protagonists. Motherfucker killed his wife, and it's like, and this is when it's all these things.
The way it's done is amazing.
The tape, man.
Silence of it. I know the original cut version was screaming, wasn't there?
There
was a cut version where she was screaming in the thing like that, but they did it where it's just like.
I think I kind of prefer the scream.
Yeah,
I think I do.
I prefer it without, because I like the fact that you just go and you just hearing disturbed audio and you just watching what's happening.
I know. I think I'm just a sicko though. So
you are a sick man.
I want to hear the scream with then it goes muffled. I want to hear that.
I like it. It feels like it matches the aesthetic more with like the fact that you're just watching it happen.
I also do think. Well, you don't. It's difficult to see him get the pillow. As well, like the way
it's the way it's animated.
Yeah, it's
what he does. He pulls it under from the head.
Like I can see it because I know what happens. I go, well, I can see.
It does look a bit like he just pulls out nowhere. Like,
wait. But like, if you don't know the game and you're watching it, you don't know the game story and you're watching it, you go, wait, what happened?
Yeah.
Why Mary was terminally ill. Mm-hmm. In his head, it was a putting her out of her misery kind of thing.
So that's where the argument comes in. Where does his perspective come from? Like, because there's the things with James where it's like, with the multiple endings of how he admits where he doesn't need Maria.
Because there's
selfish.
Well, because there's bits where it's like there's a reason why Maria is how she is. Because again, in his head, he's like, I kind of want someone who's a bit more,
more sexy,
a bit more attractive, a bit more
more playful. Yeah. And in James' word, a bit less ill.
Obviously, you get like the provocative nurses who are the villains, who it's like who are one of the monsters. Because I think there's a theory that I had an affair with a nurse or something along those lines in the hospital.
I can't remember this. There's some like sort of either documents or something like. There's something that suggests that like, James was like sexualizing the nurses that were treating. Whether he's had an affair, either that's what he's thinking of them as. Because it comes out of sexual frustration that he wasn't able to obviously have that relationship anymore with his wife because she was ill. He was frustrated by it, took it out on his wife, and then he was obviously sexualizing the nurses because of his frustration. It's a naughty James.
People are complicated. People are grey areas. Overall, people more so than others in terms of lean more weight on one side than another. But I think, and I think just using a vehicle for horror is just really cool to do it. And I think this way again, there's obviously things in media that's done it beforehand, but again, in my head, when I was doing La Bethany in my head, I'm like, I was stealing from this in terms of like
It's the Lighthouse first, wasn't it?
Well, the Lighthouse was
Then the
visually,
letter.
and then it's the Lighthouse, Silent Hill 2, and then Hereditary found its way in there somehow. And the twist ending of this, it goes from being like, I am protagonist trying to find my wife, and I'm going through a scary town with other really strange people, to being like, I'm also a really strange person who's had my own fucked upness.
Yeah.
It's,
And you know what I love about the twist is obviously after when you face Maria when she gets killed for like the third or fourth time or whatever this is at this point, she gets pierced by like two brute. I'm like, oh wait, come on. I'm not quoting exactly what James's speech was, but he basically says, I deserve this. And obviously Pyramid Head represents his own self-punishment, which is what it is. And he's punishing himself. And then soon as he goes, I deserve this punishment, he admits to what he does, he acknowledges it, and he goes, and I don't need Maria and all that sort of thing. And then the Pyramid Heads, obviously you have a boss fight with them or whatever, but it's more so, and then they randomly just kill themselves. And
they do.
They kill themselves. They perform harakiri. and they do that, but that's because James is acknowledging what he did, so they don't need to punish him anymore. And which is brilliant, where it's like they're all trying to remind him of acknowledgement of what he did and why he did it, and for selfish reasons. And when you say like there's no one purely good in the story, it's almost what it does as well. Like when you find out more about Mary and obviously the walk after the tape, which is horrendous, she's berating you and you're going, oh well, she was pushing James too far or whatever and all that stuff. Things like,
I'm nearly in tears, man.
Like you're like, no, you're like, she's had an awful disease. Like she is the pure character, isn't it? Because like Mary's like, she's went through this awful disease. She's frustrated. She's dealing with all this. But James is just thinking about himself. He's selfish.
She even apologizes.
She apologizes in tears, doesn't she? And then like, and all that. And it's just like, you didn't deserve any of this. And it's like awful that she's just this innocent like wife who loves this town. He never took her back to it. He never treated her right. He's just always, he wanted a Maria. And now that he's killed Mary, he regrets it, obviously. But like, it's almost like you remind her, like she was purely just in the worst situation ever. She just wanted to live a happy life. James wanted this, obviously, idealized version, which was Maria.
Oz Perkins, the writer and director of Longlegs, during an interview for Longlegs, I remember hearing him talking about it, saying that he watched Hereditary. He loves Hereditary. He never wants to watch Hereditary again, and he wanted to make Longlegs in the sense like he wanted to make a more accessible horror, because he said the best horror also needs to be a bit fun.
Yeah, so like, Hereditary is hard to put on, isn't it?
And the way I look, and this is why I bring into and the reason why I bring this up is because Silent Hill 2, I think it's grim, it's melancholic, it deals with the heaviest of heavy topics, and it brings you through this really emotional just turmoil. But then there's camp in it.
Yeah.
There's
you mean Eddie?
There's the classic line, there's monsters out there. How can you just sit here eating pizza? There's also, again, it's timeless. It's of the time, but the voice acting, in the sense, it's kind of, barring the Mary Maria.
Ham it up a little bit, though.
It is very like, there's moments where it's like, very like cheesy. We have fun. We can have fun quote in this game. We can have fun being silly with this game.
Yeah, it's self-aware, isn't it?
But then when getting into the game, it also has moments where it's like, God, man, this is like, again, as I said, I'm nearly on the brink of tears listening to Mary like speaking or like hearing the letter, or
I think some of this ridiculous stuff in like to say
there's
like they say
stupid things in this game.
I keep going to it like you see the pizza scene, like why does that need to be there? It does not be. It's just stupid. And then like Laura being Laura is like fatso. I'm not a fatso. Yeah, it's like Nelson's here, isn't it? You know what I mean? From Simpsons. It's just like
James being a dope.
James is a dope.
So many times I do. Hey, wait a minute.
Hey, wait a minute.
As much as I love Hereditary. And even using another film that briefly mentioned, Possession, love Possession. I'm not putting on Possession often.
Yeah.
I'm not putting on Hereditary often.
It's a rough watch. Like
yeah. Love them both. But also I like things that give me a reason to feel like I kind of want to revisit this. I want to be. I want like moment, and I think again, you look at Silent Hill 2. I want moments where it's like, I want to experience this really dark, melancholic story, but then also I kind of also want to I want to see these characters.
Yeah.
I want to be in. I want to go to this place. I want to do. So I think that this is what I mean. There's almost a weird comfort with this game as well.
A lot of people do say that though.
I do think it helps because it's nostalgic. It's the PS2 element of it, and it's got like that elements of it.
It's got that bittersweet or melancholy about it because it's like the Silent Hill vibe and the atmospheric existentialism sort of thing. Anyone could just whack that on and just vibe with it if they're having a moment.
There's videos where you could just stick on like Silent Hill mood video. In conclusion, Lewis, is Silent Hill 2 the greatest horror game of all time?
It's one of them.
It's one of them.
It's one of them because it depends. For me, I like to muddy this a little bit. For me, I think it depends on basically what type of horror you're into. Because the amount of people I have heard that cannot get into Silent Hill purely because it's not Resident Evil.
Okay.
It's not bang bang shooty the monsters.
Yeah.
So it's like, and the thing is, I love Resident Evil as well, but Resident Evil's a fun horror game.
Yeah,
it's a B movie basically, but Silent Hill's just a vibe. I will say Silent Hill 2 is the best form of psychological horror, and the only thing that would have topped it would have been Silent Hills, purely because PT is probably one of the scariest things. I don't get scared easily. I'll play the most horrific things. It is the blueprint of what psychological horror as a story should be. And I think, I haven't played the remake yet, I think the remake is going to take the modern, almost what Resi 2 remake did to Resi 2, modernize it, take that story, hopefully, and, if they change things here and there, and modernize what is the perfect blueprint for the best psychological horror game.
And for me personally, it's my favorite horror game. Again, I'm not, and you know me, I'm not as well versed in video games as a whole.
You just play Beyond Two Souls all the time, don't you? Not Beyond Two Souls, Heavy Rain is what I'm thinking. Jason.
But again, my main horror exposure is mainly like the Supermassive games, which are fun. I like them a lot.
Yeah, the B movie, aren't they?
Yeah, they're good slashers.
Yeah,
they're
slashers.
like 90. They're like, well, Until Dawn's like 90s slasher.
Well, yeah.
Quarry's more 80s slasher. What I like about I'm a very narrative person. So in terms of narrative, I haven't seen another video game, another horror game, do a better horror narrative
and have the same impact as well.
Yeah, yeah, and still beat timeless and still resonate.
Oh yeah,
to this day,
Wait,
23 years later.
For me, it is one of the ones that are up there.
It's top tier.
Yeah, it is top tier.
I would say so, and that's why we're both looking forward to the remake, which we'll cover that when we finish it.
Yeah, that'll be fun.
Is what I'll say. We won't put a date on it yet. We'll cover it when we're done with it. So that has been our thoughts on Silent Hill 2 PS2. Yeah, it's all right.
It's all right.
It's all right.
It ain't no Crash Bandicoot.
Comment below with what your thoughts on Silent Hill 2 are. Stay tuned as always. Make sure you subscribe to Intermission Kills for all future stuff. We got a good October for yous.
No Robbie.
No Robbie at all.
Robbie.
Follow the Instagram to keep on updates and all that. I believe from my memory, the next video, yes, it will be this week. There's gonna be a Terrifier double bill. That's gonna be this week.
I'm not involved in that. I'm not sick.
This is not involved. In anticipation for Terrifier 3, there will be a Terrifier double bill.
I bought them those Blu-rays.
You are the one to blame.
It's my fault.
So subscribe for that. Keep up to date on Instagram. And there's more to come.
Mm-hmm.
Not only for this month, but for the rest. I nearly went for the rest of time.
The rest of time.
Yeah.
The rest of my life.
Foreseeable future. And until next time, everyone. Shall see you later. And goodbye.
Goodbye.